Detailer's Roadmap Cruise Control, where we navigate the roadways of life, business, and everything in between. Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Cruise Control Podcast. We are here with Chris DiGiovanni, and we are doing an Air Force One recap, recap because we want to talk more about it, but also recap because we discovered after getting back that our audio had been a little bit whacked out, and by a little bit whacked out, I mean completely absent. So
Kerplunk.
Kerplunk. That was a little bit of a tense meeting when we discovered that, but we're going back doing some of these interviews, and Chris and I did an awesome kind of recap there on site. You'll see some of that in the B-roll, but thought it'd be a good opportunity for us to get together now that we've been, 8 or 9 days out since we've been back. So kind of tell me how, I've been involved with Detailer's Helper side for almost 10 years now, and this was the first year that we came and did Detailer's Roadmap sponsorship. Kind of give me an idea of what led you to do that, why you wanted to do that, and then kind of give me your expectations and then how it went.
Yeah. I guess I'm kind of new to the industry too, so I didn't know what to expect. I've only seen it from the outside when you guys would go do it and see the plane and polish the plane, and I guess you don't really see how big the team is, if that makes sense, from and as how much organization goes into it, like Chris Woolman and Rennie and those guys setting up teams of what they're going to be doing. They're going in stages because of how much oxidation and kind of beatness that those planes go through from just the fallout from the highway and being next to that kind of small runway and stuff like that. But yeah, it was kind of, and I think I said this to you last time, is like, it was kind of awe-inspiring a little bit of how much camaraderie is between all those guys. Like, it's not like a good old boy network that I thought it was. It was just a lot of, hey, what do you need help on? There's females there too. So it wasn't just always all men or anything like that. But, it's just crazy. Rennie does this whole thing, gets this contract. They do this on an annual basis. And then he puts his name on it, puts the insurance up, and all these people fly in and dedicate their time to it. And it's just kind of wild, I guess. You're touching planes that have significant historical value. And I'm just a little in awe, I guess, from the difference from seeing pictures and being there is just crazy. Absolutely mind blowing. And you've been a part of it for a decade plus, so you're used to it.
Yeah. I mean, when I first started, it was all those planes. Air Force One was actually sitting across the street in basically like an empty parking lot. So talk about getting beaten by the sun. They built that. It's kind of in a huge, it's just kind of like an overhang kind of thing that covers all the planes, but it's still open on the sides. But I mean, imagine those, the first 787 Dreamliner was there, and you don't realize when you see those planes on TV or in pictures just until you don't even really get to stand next to them because you're not allowed to be on a runway, right? You go there and you look up at that, and what do we see? The engines on those things are 11 feet in
11
diameter.
Feet tall. I took a picture of it. I'm sure they'll put it in B-roll.
Yeah, it's just insane how big those planes are. This was a 20th anniversary, which was super cool. And to your point, these are volunteers. Like, these guys take not only are they paying their way out there, it's a nonprofit type setup, right? Like, they, their money, the museum does help fund the project, but these guys it's not like they're going out there spending a week making, a few grand polishing planes. They're probably losing many grand. Money. Yeah, yep. They lose a lot of money by paying for it and all that. But
yeah, it's a donation purely.
Yeah, 100%. What was your experience with the actual people that were there versus, just like you said, it was more camaraderie for sure. And I'm not saying like this particular group of men and women are better than anybody else in the industry, but I was surprised at the overall caliber from a business standpoint.
Yeah, and we got asked to be, if we were interested in being a sponsor, and I took up an opportunity to do the gold sponsorship. Um, and we kind of mentioned this before is like, especially Pat at work at Detailers Roadmap, and you see it as well, as that, like, for some reason, and maybe it's because of who Rennie attracts, I'm mainly talking to business owners um, at people who are part of the detail mafia and stuff like that. Not that they're not detailers, but they're kind of more. I mean, we saw a bunch of customers there, a bunch of partners, and it wasn't, hey, what paint correction product should I do, or I'm not getting enough leads tomorrow or stuff. It was like, yeah, I'm thinking about next year. I'm thinking about what I could do, thinking about scaling my business. So it's kind of like one of those things is like, he attracts a certain person, and I truly believe, even just seeing our own partners there, he's attracts a lot of business owners. Even the nights when we were talking to people, they were just talking about life and businesses and what they want to do, not so much product and polisher and stuff like that. I don't know how to, and that, to me, that's right up my alley. That I love talking about what can you do to better yourself or your business. And so,
Yeah, I don't think I had one one conversation about, hey, have you tried this new polish on soft black GM paint? I'm like, no. They're talking about, how their Google ads are performing or Facebook ads are performing, and how they can use their website to better their business. And it's interesting, as part of Rennie's training, and not all the mafia members have gone through this training, but it has a very heavy business focus, which
mhm.
is relatively rare in terms of training. Almost all the trainings are about product and procedures and and polishes and polishers and those kind of things.
Mhm. Yeah. That's just, they're always trying to get out of their business so they can work on the business, if that makes the most sense. And we saw a lot of partners there, and Jessica Brook and Jerome Holland and, yeah, Yasir and, Ricardo, a lot of people that we have current partnerships. And that kind of just, ironically, even though we have websites and do SEO for a lot of these guys, a lot of times those are exactly the conversations they're having. Hey, this is working great XYZ. What else can I bolt on, or what else should I be doing? And they're just always receptive people, and that's probably why I was most interested of sponsoring it. Is it's just people I enjoy talking to, because going back when I first heard about the mafia, you always think of that name, like, mafia. Am I going to get shot just inquiring? But it truly is. It makes sense. And he told that story about, it's very similar to like his father's side, and I think it was maybe grandfather's side, about whole
Mm-hmm.
family and kind of being nested. And once you're in because you're like family. And yeah, it was just kind of on those dinners, you just kind of looked around, and everybody was kind of more or less cheering each other on for their successes and problem solving for anything that they're going through. So,
Yeah, I was intrigued because we got to be, so there was a 20th anniversary gala dinner one night, and we had an opportunity to go, and I was really struck because they actually allowed us to kind of see firsthand their induction ceremony and their kind of I guess you'd call it a promotion ceremony. But to your point, Rennie's grandfather was actually part of the mafia at one time. So
mhm.
some people think, well, just Rennie thought that was cool, so he made it up, and this is kind of how that name. But there actually is some definitive roots there. But um, describe that experience from your perspective, watching those guys and girls go through that kind of induction ceremony.
Yeah, so they had like, not everybody was there. It was just, I think it was like 30 or 35 detailers, and the group itself is, I wouldn't say even massive to begin with. I mean, there's probably, I think he said like 100 made members plus, something like that. But they had people that were made that have essentially been with the group, have been kind of approved from like a board, and then there was people that were kind of like up and comers, that they have to do certain things, personally within their business, as well as go to a certain amount of trainings or events like this. And yeah, it was just, overall it was a dinner, it was like a meet and greet, and then it was a lot of like, this is why this person's being recognized. This is why these people are going into be not just kind of, I wouldn't say interns. I forget the term that they used. Do you remember what the term was when they're not
The
made?
level below, I don't remember the level below made. I remember they have Hall of Famers, and they kind of go up, and founders as you go
Yeah.
up through the ranks, but it's basically pre-made. The ones below made. I can't remember.
Yeah. So pre-made.
Pre-made.
Yeah, no, just a lot of people kind of congratulating people and telling why these people are just going up and moving up and stuff like that, and it's not just being given or handed out. So I know it sounds like a lot of like backslapping high fives, but I think a lot of these people take a lot of what they're learning from their higher ups, and those higher ups are kind of like saying, did you actually do those items? Did you make actionable pieces? So they're invested in their interest because they only want the best in their group, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they've refused quite a bit of people, because I think at this stage you have to apply to
Yeah.
be a part of this whole event, which has been different in the past, that they've kind of basically have fed it out and vice versa. So this is kind of the first group that had to apply to even come to this. Yeah, it was just it was pretty unique. I immediately thought in my head, I'm like, how do you get this kind of level of camaraderie, excitement among our own internal group? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting because the group in order for you to get made, quote unquote, you basically have to go through and give your time. You volunteer for certain actions. You actually serve the group and the community at large. Like it's not just like this, internal rah fraternity kind of thing. Like these guys are serving their internal community in a way, and the detailing community at large, in ways that help, that they are recognized for. And
Yeah.
as they go through, and they were in, basically they were taking, I think there was 6 or 7 people that were getting into that made category, so they got made there. But it struck me because they do the introduction, and then there was like a line of 35 or 40 people. Not everybody there was a part of the project. They hugged and shook hands with every single one. It looked like
Each
a
one. Yep.
wedding receiving line. And
Yep.
but just that's that level of camaraderie that's like, it's heartwarming to actually see that in person.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a big step for a lot of those guys. Like they showed that they put in the work, and then they received, some sort of, gratitude and thank you for putting in that work. And here's kind of, you're into a group or a family for essentially life. So I think it's a big moment for a lot of people. And I could see why. It's not a 60-day, 90-day, few months kind of devotion. It seems like, Chris Tabieros is a guy that did a website with us. I remember when he first came out of training a couple years ago. So he's just getting made. So
Yep.
that means he went through that whole process over a 2-3 year span.
Yeah.
So,
And contrary to popular belief, it actually is an organization that is not like, they have their exclusivity built into it, but they're not like, we are better than everybody else in the industry. Like Rennie's very interested in building the industry as a whole, and his mafia group is an instrument to do that. So I thought that was super cool as well. What's your big takeaway from Air Force One, just being there and kind of, raised, I know it was more than you expected in order to be there, right? This episode is brought to you by Detailers Roadmap. Hey, spoiler alert, that's us. We all know you need a kick-ass website in order to be successful with your business. The good news is, at Detailers Roadmap, kick-ass websites, that's kind of what we do. With the latest performance, designs, and SEO strategies, Detailers Roadmap is your one-stop shop to be successful on the web. And don't forget, we have the best support team in the industry. Whether you're an existing partner looking to improve your lead generation or you need a brand new website, Detailer's Roadmap is here to help you be successful on the web. So go to detailersroadmap.com/success and get started today. That's detailersroadmap.com/SUCCESS.
More than, I mean, yeah, I thought people would just be like, show up and like everybody's just cleaning planes. Away you go. But I mean, everybody kind of has a little bit of a job to do. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's way more fucking organized than I thought it was going to be. And that's credit to Rennie, and Chris Woolman too, is like,
dude, he's a rock star.
Just ridiculous. The amount of stuff. I mean, they're getting photos and, that it's I don't care what anyone says. I personally feel like that is a great highlight event for the industry. And I know there's been some stuff floating around and we can get into it or not, but I mean, they're touching vehicles of significant historical significance, I should say again, historical significance. And, he's putting his name on it, and these guys are going through it, and they're super. It's like with this weird scenario of like being delicate with everything, but some of the fallout that some of these planes have like truly need polishing galore. So, and I'm sure it was worse when they didn't have that roof on it. I can't imagine.
Yeah, because they've been working through it a little bit at a time. Like looking at like the engine bright work on the Concorde was just, I mean, it looked like it had never been polished, which it probably hasn't. But they were working on one of the engines of Air Force One, which this Air Force One is just kind of a historical significant. Lyndon B. Johnson, Richard Nixon's, that era. It was the first jet Air Force One that was used.
Wow.
So it's that 707, but they were polishing one of the bright work on that, and it's just, I mean, it looks phenomenal after they're done. But that it does continue to oxidize because it's just raw metal, raw aluminum, and
I always thought it was just Air Force One. I didn't realize it was multiple planes too. So I always thought it was just one plane, and it's really not. It's many. It's quite a few of the planes. I don't think it's all of them, but they're going through pretty decently, and some of them are getting polished and some are just getting wiped down. But for some reason I thought it was just one plane, and it's not.
No, the one plane is just, I mean, the Air Force One is kind of the highlight plane, but they, with Boeing being right there, it essentially has, to my knowledge, all of the first planes of each revision. I don't know if that's each model, let's say. So the initial 727 is there. Air Force One's a 707. You have the first 737, the first 747, and then I don't think there's a 757, but they did the 787, which is the
Dreamliner.
big mama Dreamliner plane. So it really is. And then you go into the museum and you've got the Firefox plane. You've got there was B1s in there, B17s that they polished. It's all, I mean, it's an amazing place. Even if you don't ever do the Air Force One event, go to Seattle Museum of Flight if you're an airplane nerd. It's quite interesting. So you looking forward to doing it again next year?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would love to. I'd love to bring someone from the group for sure as well. Like someone from our staff to kind of see it. I mean, putting in pictures and seeing some video definitely helps, but it's just, I would love to go again. I thought it was fantastic. Those guys, they know what they're doing. They have a system down. And it even that trickle down effect. Like I saw Rick Cole even posting where his like newsletter or his local news is picking him up on stuff like that, which is, I'm sure that's not the intention, to always, get some local news to pick up on what you've done, but it's cool to see that they get some recognition on that local level, because these guys blow 7 days plus flights, all that stuff to get there. So,
they're very organized. So one thing as a sponsor, if you're thinking about sponsoring this event, these guys and girls are like, Chris organizes this. They've kind of built this whole system to where the members that are there and other Mafia members are actually posting about the sponsors. So you'll see, if you follow a bunch of these guys on Facebook, you'll see the same basic post over and over and over again because they're highlighting those. So you get, and this is a pure business thing, but and from a sponsorship, you're getting tons of exposure. And I know that a lot of the guys that have done it before or kind of are savvy, they will reach out to local media in order to get that kind of thing going. So they're trying to capitalize on the unique nature of what the project is. So I can't recommend it enough. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But they do a great job. Chris does an amazing job. Chris Woolman sent us the link to Dropbox. He's like, I'm sorry it took me a few days. I had to go through 14,000 images. That's how many images. I don't even I guess it's between him and, all, but that's an amazing number of
Don't
photos.
Tell him he does too good of a job. Otherwise you'll never hear. He does like Mini Coopers. So you have to slight him on something.
Slightly. Well, he did go on vacation. Finally. He was like, I think I'm just going to skip it. I'm like, I'll back Rennie up here. We'll kind of come pick you up and drop you off somewhere on a black site if you don't go on vacation. So luckily he did that. But well, it was a great event. I'm excited to continue to do it from both sides of the coin. It was really fun for me to kind of do this Superman change halfway through one of the days and take my detailer's helper shirt off and put detailer's roadmap and be able to do interviews and all that. So that was a blast. I enjoyed
detailer's helper. You do push-ups on the plane, and then detailer's roadmap is more of like eating donuts and saying your SEO is doing terrible, right? That's probably
we did take an awkward family photo on the wing of Air Force One after I did push-ups. So that's definitely one of my favorite photos from the event. So me kind of leaning into you with my hand on your chest. So that's definitely our signature. But yeah, those donuts were also very good.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for kind of showing me the ropes of AFO, if I haven't said it before, but it was a great piece to see and be a part of in just the smallest way. And, thanks to those guys for what they do, if they haven't heard us say it virtually. So
100%. Look forward to next year. All right, Chris, thanks so much, buddy.
All right. See ya.
Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Cruise Control Podcast. We are here doing our post Air Force One interviews. As it turns out, we did these on site while we were there. So you might ask, why aren't you just doing these there? We had a little audio problem. So gracefully, a lot of our guests are coming back to actually help us get that content and do these interviews. So Jessica Rook, we are here with her. She is of Final Approach Detailing and Ceramic Coating. And man, I'm super thankful that you came back and are willing to kind of, help us correct this technical error. It was definitely a challenge.
No problem at all. We get it. Gotta love technology these days.
That's right. So, hey, you told me while we were on site, the name of your company is Final Approach, which I actually screwed up during the original interview, but it's Final Approach. And you have a really cool backstory for that. So I'd love to have you tell us that backstory because it's super touching and interesting. And I think kind of speaks to you guys as a company.
Yeah, absolutely. So aviation is really rooted in our business in several different ways and for a pretty unique reason, as you touched on. My husband, Travis, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer back in 2017 after having been in remission for about 15 years. And unfortunately, he had his private pilot's license at that time, and we had a really hard time getting that in place prior to this reoccurrence of cancer. So this go around, once he got sick again, returning back to aviation at the level that we had been, and him being able to fly wasn't as much of a possibility anymore. So we kind of figured out how we could incorporate aviation in our lives. And we actually both sat down and made a list of the things that we could envision ourselves doing. We had owned businesses in the past, specifically aviation related businesses. And we both said, what would we actually like doing? Not what are our degrees in, or what had we spent careers in, or what could we make the most money in, but what did we actually like doing at the end of the day? And both of us had detailing on our list. So we took that idea and then we figured out how we could incorporate aviation. So Final Approach is obviously a reference within aviation. But we also have it built into even our packages. Our packages are economy, business class, first class, executive. We call our staff our crew, kind of our flight crew within the shop. So as much as we can keep the dream and the aviation theme alive, we try to.
I love that. That's really cool. I met with Grant Menard on the long podcast, and we talked about the title of that podcast is like creating a detailing Disneyland. And so it's those themes and kind of keeping that brand throughout everything you do is really creates an experience for the customer. So that's super cool. Detailer's Roadmap, obviously we use military planes for our packages as well. So I think that's, Tomcat, AC-130, all of those. So you're still so you do automotive, marine, and aviation still for detailing?
Yeah. Aviation isn't as big around our area. So we do a little bit more on just the consultation side. So Travis will consult with a lot of detailers that are looking to get into aviation detailing, but don't necessarily know how to start or what you can and cannot do for aircraft or, on an airport in general. So more of consultation at this point, but we do take on some smaller aviation jobs. But definitely in our shop, we're maxed out here just with cars and boats in the shop as well. So getting off site these days is a little bit more difficult.
That's cool. Yeah. And I mean, I assume his consultation is don't go into aviation detailing unless you know what the hell you're doing.
How did you know, Kevin? How did you know? That's step
well,
one.
because I've done aviation detailing, and I have friends that do very high end aviation detailing. And the first thing you ask is, what does your insurance look like? Because you need special, very expensive insurance to do aviation detailing. Because as it turns out, if you leave a high spot on a hood of a car, it's not that big a deal. If you ruin a sensor on an airplane and kill 25 people, that tends to be a little bit larger of a deal, right?
So. Very big deal. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just from the insurance side, there's a lot of regulations around the airports, what can and cannot, touch the grounds on an airport. There's a lot that goes into the aviation side of detailing. And so as much education as we can put out there on that, the better. I think that it is becoming more and more popular. A lot of people see it as kind of a quick ticket, right? Big plane, big money. That's kind of how it's looked at. But, there's a lot of cost and liability that's associated with it. So making sure, that you have that information as much as possible. We always suggest go to ground school. Go to ground school, get to know what exactly every part is of the plane and what you can and cannot do. That's the best way to do it. But if you can't go to ground school, then, find somebody like a Travis, my husband, that can help give you some of that guidance.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of planes, this is our kind of debrief, and it actually should be interesting because when I interviewed you last week, it was midweek. You had just dressed the tire of a older military aircraft. I can't remember which plane that was, but you were kind of in the thick of it at that time. So you've only been back, like, what'd you get back on Saturday night or something like that?
We got back late Sunday. I got in.
Okay,
just
so this is like we're like 2 days out, right? Yes. So you've been back in the quote unquote real world for a couple of days.
Yep.
So first of all, explain what Air Force One is. This was your first year. You were one of the rookies, right?
Yeah. Yep. I was a rookie on the project this year. The project itself has been going on for 20 years. This was the 20-year anniversary of the project. So, a lot of people think we only do Air Force One. And while that would be really exciting to be able to address everything on Air Force One, we actually touched about 17 aircraft while we were there. So pretty much everything that
Wow.
is in the outdoor pavilion at the Museum of Flight, and even some aircraft that are throughout the museum, we were able to lay hands on this year. And so some of that is, polishing and aluminum work, bright work, like you see in all of our pictures. A lot of that is just preserving and protecting. So just making sure we give it a really good clean, and putting some protection down to make that easier to clean and to keep that looking good longer throughout the year.
Yeah, and I know P&S put out the new Defender sealant this year, so that was something you guys
Yes.
put all over everything, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Defender
Yeah,
was a
that's very
game
cool.
changer this year. That, and shout out to them for Absolute as well with their rinseless wash. That really helped get things cleaned up a little faster.
Yeah, it's funny to see these guys, guys and girls both on big cranes and lifts, to be with their, men on a stick from Ian at Auto Fiber. We're just going to drop all the names here, but
Oh, yeah.
out there doing waterless wash on a 787 or a 747. So it was at Seattle Museum of Flight, and that basically houses all of the first aircraft of Boeing, of those 787, 707, 747, 737, all of those 7 series airplanes, right?
Yep.
And you guys touched all of them pretty much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. The 727 actually was on deck for a bigger project next year, and we were able to actually knock out quite a bit. We got to both the bright work and the paint on that this year. So big aircraft
Oh,
for
that's
sure.
super cool. Yeah, for sure. So what does being on that project mean to you? You were one of 2 women, right? So we always,
Yes.
I spend my world is surrounded by female tradespeople and all female activities like car building for SEMA. And, Michelle, my wife, has been involved in a ton of that stuff. So, what does it mean to you personally? And then what does it mean to kind of represent this growing segment of detailers that are, female business owners and detailers out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of got to have twofold of that. So my mother was actually 24 years active duty Air Force. And so a little 5 foot tall, they called her Smurfette. She was little but mighty. And so she was definitely boots on the ground, directing all of the aircraft as they were coming in and out. And so for me, I got to kind of have both my side with detailing and preserving the aircraft, but also just being around just that level of government transportation and the meaning and the history that has to our nation, to our military, to our country. It's really, really just breathtaking from that side too. So, to be a female, I always say that, I never want to be recognized as just a female detailer. I want to be a detailer and be able to, be on that same playing field
Right.
as all the guys. And I think that was very evident throughout the week. I think that you get a lot of preconceived notions going into the project. Really, the biggest barrier for myself being a female on the project was my short arms, because as you can imagine, we're doing a lot of reaching with the polisher and with the mid on a stick, and my reach is not as long as these guys next to me. But outside of that, I think you could talk to any one of them and they'd tell you that that was probably the only thing that held me back as a woman. So
Well, I mean, and to your credit, there's some guys that are not much taller than you on that project too. So yeah.
I mean, I wasn't
We
gonna
won't
say
mention
it.
any names, but yeah. For
Oh, they
sure.
were
Yeah, it's
mentioned.
such a cool thing to be there because they're right. It's a cool thing to be there because of that, being an American and being, I try to be pretty patriotic. I've never served, but my daughter-in-law she literally just deployed to Syria yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And so like that whole military side of things, it kind of some of these conversations and seeing, ex-military guys, former Marines, everybody that's out there, it's super cool to be a part of that,
Yeah.
for sure.
I
So
always say
I'm very excited that you had an opportunity to do that.
connection.
Say that again.
Oh, sorry, I had a delay there. I've always said it just hits different when you have that connection, right? It's a pretty powerful moment for any detailer to step into that pavilion and see all of those aircraft, but definitely to have that connection and to know, a lot of the history and all of that behind the aircraft themselves is pretty powerful.
Yeah, the gentleman that with the B-17, the
Yes.
older
Yeah.
gentleman that had flown 35 B-17 missions on it, not that plane particularly, but part of that crew.
Yeah, absolutely. He is just an amazing, amazing individual, 100 years old. And if you ever get a chance to talk with him privately, he's quite a hoot. He's got not only some really powerful stories, but he's also a very, very entertaining man. It looks like I've lost you here, Kevin. Not sure if you can hear me or not.
I lost your signal there for a second.
There we go.
You-
Sorry
I
about that.
think it probably recorded your side, so I think we're good. We're good there. You're
Okay.
talking about him being 100 years old and all that. Sorry about that, dude.
You're
Technology
good.
has just not been our friend on this thing for sure.
Right?
So let's talk about websites. Detailers
Yeah,
Roadmap. You're a customer of ours,
I am.
and tell me kind of where you were website wise before you started with Detailers Roadmap, and kind of what your overall goals were in hiring us and kind of going through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had actually done things a little bit backwards with Detailer's Roadmap. So I started with Detailer's Roadmap for SEO services, and I was with you guys for probably close to that 8 to 9 month mark on the SEO side when I was ready to start making some revisions to my website. I had previously worked with another website company to build out a site. And unfortunately, it just was not a good fit, both as a company, but also the website was not performing at the level that I needed it to be performing at. And we were lucky enough to be adding new services and growing quite a bit in our shop. So rather than try and reinvent the wheel and figure it out myself to create new pages on a, half functioning site, I really wanted to just make that investment the one time and do it right. And I'm so happy that I did. We've rolled out with our site now, going on the 60-day mark. I just can't say enough great things. It's performing very well right away. I wasn't expecting a huge jump in traffic because I had been on for SEO for so long prior, but the number of qualified leads that I'm getting, candidates that are coming right into that box that have already reviewed my packages and my pricing and got their questions answered. That in itself, you can't necessarily attach a value to, but it's just huge. I can't say enough great things when it comes to just the level of qualified leads.
Yeah, it's crazy because you were driving. If you're at that 7, 8, 9 month mark for SEO, like you're starting to drive some serious traffic, because that's kind of that initial sweet spot when the ball really starts getting rolled. And
Yeah.
if you're going to a less than high converting website, let's say, then it's not you almost kind of did it right in one way, that it kind of built that all up, and then when you kicked out a great brand new website that just, I mean, super high converting, I would hope. I bet your conversion rate
Yeah.
went through the roof.
Oh, absolutely. Just within the first, few days or weeks, that was evident right from the start. So,
That's awesome. And what was your experience with the support team? We kind of pride ourselves with these guys that are our success managers and support team. These people are just amazing. What was your experience there with those people?
that is exactly what my experience has been. We expect a lot from ourselves. We joke around. We not joke around. We say it within our business. We have a first class service experience, and that's actually something that was coined from a client that had actually said that their experience with us was first class many years ago. And we have high expectations when it comes to communication. We expect as business owners to be treated the same way that we would treat others within our business. And that comes from communication, transparency, all of those factors. And the service team with Detailers Roadmap just really, really blew that out of the park. Everything that we sent over, they were quickly attentive to. If they didn't have answers to questions, because I had a lot of those one-off questions, they made sure to figure that out, point me in the right direction, or get the answer themselves and come back to me. Just the timeliness of everything, clear expectations from the start, clear timelines throughout the process. an exemplar delivery every step along the way.
That's awesome. I love to hear that we're able to deliver the same level of service that you expect and deliver to your clients. It's funny because I'm a Delta Platinum Medallion member only because I barely didn't get Diamond, which kind of irritate me. But like I always joke if I don't get upgraded to first class, because I'm like, oh, honey, I'll text my wife, honey, I gotta sit with the peasants, right? Like so, because you you get spoiled with first class service and you have certain expectations. So I'm super excited to know that you had that same experience with us.
Absolutely. You guys knocked it out of the park.
Well, Jessica, I appreciate you taking the time and meeting back with us. I love what you're doing there. I'm sure you're planning on going back next year to do the 21st year.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're going to have to try to keep me away at this point because I'm hooked.
Well, I mean, the good news is you know how to find it, and the gate wasn't actually locked, so you just pick up a polisher and start going.
That's true. That's not a bad idea, Kevin.
All righty. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. You too. Thanks so much.
Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from Cruise Control Podcast. We are here doing our second post Air Force One interview. I'm here with Justin Labato from JL's Auto Salon. JL's Showroom Auto Salon. I always mess that up.
Mouthful. It's okay.
JL's Showroom Auto
Salon. I have to get it out and you covered it. It's like singing a song with a friend. You don't know the words, but they do.
Yeah, don't know the words.
You're just following by.
You say the name of the business.
JL's Showroom Auto Salon, formerly known as JL's Showroom Detailing before I expanded. Yes.
Now we're a full-on salon. Justin spends a lot of time doing his hair. That kind of thing. Justin and I have known each other for a long time, right? And he's a pillar in the industry, as I would call him. And we had an opportunity to talk at Air Force One. As we said in some of our other interviews, we had a audio complete failure. So we're gonna go back and kind of do some of these interviews 1 week out. Air Force One was awesome. It was the 20th anniversary. So I want to talk about that. But first, I want to kind of take time because we didn't actually have time to do it at Air Force One. Just give me your kind of background a little bit, what you currently do in the industry, because I know you do a multitude of things. So I want to hear more about you, and then we'll kind of get into Air Force One.
So just to kind of give the full foundation of even how I got involved in the industry, right? I started detailing at 25. I'll be 41 August 1st, so pretty much call it 41. That was something I started doing as I was unemployed. So zero money, no help, no handout. Didn't come from any family financial support or anything of that nature. Got into it in June of 2008, January of 2009. I owned a business detailing from a gentleman I had started under his wing. And so I never looked back from there. And then, of course, my first show, I grinded, of course, that's 6 years. Doing Common Core detailing, some dealership stuff, wholesale stuff, kept it simple, learned as I went, grew, and doing the Common Core detailing minus any coatings, I was still able to achieve six-figure gross revenue for the business. Just a little over 100,000, not anything really to brag about, but even with doing that, no correction, no coatings, now it's harder to do for guys.
Yeah, that's really good, especially being in, what would be you're up in a space coast of Florida, correct? And so that's a relatively, not like you're in the middle of Orlando or middle of Miami, right? So
Tampa, right? Yep. Common Core Services, still doing that with a helper, myself and a helper, not a full-time guy, not a full-time staff. So this was, I thought, pretty big for myself, especially looking back pre-2014, 2013, 12 timeframe. Because coatings really didn't start to take off till a little later than that, a couple years later. But first show was 2014, got to meet Rennie Doyle. From there, I went to training that year. That was my first year of starting to attend all the shows from Mobile Tech, Detail Fest, SEMA, and, of course, being able to be part of the Air Force One team starting in 2014. And that exposed me to the world of detailing, the industry of detailing on a whole nother level, meeting you, getting more involved and meeting so many other people and personalities in our industry that I used to look up to online, the Mike Phillips, Rennie himself, all these people who are the stars and the juggernauts of what created what we have today for the most part in regards to content and everything else, education and process, of course.
Yeah.
And I was really down that rabbit hole myself on the craft side. I really just absorbed as a sponge as much of the craft as I could. I wanted to be amongst the best of the best. And in order for that to happen, you had to perform at that level, because when you're shoulder to shoulder with those guys, they see through bullshit. They see through lies. They see through people who are not real.
Right.
And if you're not able to produce that, then you're just basically not real. You're just fronting. So I didn't want to be that guy. So I proved myself by learning as much of the craft. And I really got to shine, not just on Air Force One, but then when I got asked to be part of the Mother's travel polish team, where they had the contract with Barrett-Jackson. And that's where I really was hardcore when it came to paint correction, and grew my craft even more so there.
This episode is brought to you by Detailer's Roadmap. Hey, spoiler alert, that's us. We all know you need a kick-ass website in order to be successful with your business. The good news is, at Detailer's Roadmap, kick-ass websites, that's kind of what we do. With the latest performance, designs, and SEO strategies, Detailer's Roadmap is your one-stop shop to be successful on the web. And don't forget, we have the best support team in the industry. Whether you're an existing partner looking to improve your lead generation, or you need a brand new website, Detailer's Roadmap is here to help you be successful on the web. So go to detailersroadmap.com/success and get started today. That's detailersroadmap.com/SUCCESS.
And then other opportunities, like with yourself, being able to be part of the Competition Ready show. And then, of course, Buff and Shine, PNS, so many other great things that have come my way as opportunities presented to me. Never asked, never, sidebarred, kind of asked but didn't ask kind of thing. This was all just literally me being in the mix and me doing me and growing into the positions that got presented to me. President of the IDA, and each position allowed me to get to know more people, and those same people that I've been around even better, because it put me in front of them more, so I had more time with them. So I got to get them to know more on a personal level, get to meet their wife, their kids, their families, see some of their homes, and outside of just the brands in the industry. So it made it deeper.
Yeah.
And so, and of course, Buff and Shine, that's been a huge soundboard for me on the industry, because, when we started back in 2015, 2016, I think 2016, we didn't know. They needed somebody to help put their a face to their company in the detail industry, which they already had, but they just needed somebody that was a technician, a detailer, to help with that. And I was upcoming, and it seemed like a perfect fit. And then they started putting my face on things, and it became
we can see from the poster behind you.
It just became a good relationship in regards to that. And now, being, the front man of the company, I mean, Richard, he's the owner. Richard Umbrell and Liz Umbrell, they are just powerhouses for that company. And he's the one who started it in '87, but they put me forward to be the face and be a strong representative for us, just not only in the industry, but for their company. And that says a lot, because that I feel very, appreciative of that. But that's helped me get in front of pads, right? Pads are neutral, but it's helped me get in front of so many coating companies and so many home-based storefronts.
Yeah. And
box truck distributors, the Ardex, the Carbright, the Majestic Solutions, and Jason up at Chicago Auto Pros of Detail Wise, and just getting in front of all these people that individually I probably would have taken longer to be there.
Right.
Rag company, powerhouses in this industry, and in the meantime, being able to help pick their brain and have casual conversation, because I obviously want to be able to grow my own shop, as I'm still operating a shop. And from that small starter detailer to the building I'm in, I went from 1,800 to 2,500 to now owning the building and property at 7,300 square feet, and going from a detailing business that had a couple of employees, or a small shop to say, which I don't take anything away from, that was the foundation, to a full-blown, what I consider operation now, where I have 7 employees and we do window tint, PPF, and full-blown retail, detail supply storefront, selling water. I mean, the hub for the detailers here locally in our county.
Nice.
And so operating that with the balance of operating the industry is kind of, I haven't mastered, but I've become really good at managing my time to be able to give a little piece of myself to each part of those things in my life, including my family.
Yeah.
Although my wife tends to get a little ruffled every so often because I don't give as much time as I should, but I'm spread thin at times.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where I'm at and what I've come
I
to
love
with
it.
being product of my environment, to say. That's what I've
Yeah.
always used as a term.
I love it. And it's funny because it really all started, you getting famous was the Competition Ready show, as you and I battled over who could get the most background camera time. So as a side note to this episode, Justin and I did Competition Ready at SEMA. It was the very first episode. And I swear we spent the entire shooting day seeing who could be. I mean, we must have wiped the same fender on the back of that black car, 1,000 times. Cause like I would do it, then he would do it, then we'd follow each other. So anyway, that was
It's
a fun
all
game.
strategic placement, right? But think about it. Both you and I, we get this phone call from Jim Holloway, and Jim Holloway, he's the son of Barbara mothers, and they are the biggest sponsor for SEMA for car care. They're the biggest sponsor for a lot of the stuff on in the automotive industry. And he did, I think, like the first 80 or 88 episodes of overhauling. Like,
yep,
it's a big thing that he's been involved with. So to get a call from him and to get a call saying, "Hey, do you want to be on a TV show that we're shooting at SEMA live on the floor?" It's like,
absolutely, yeah.
Sign me up, coach. Hopefully, I'm ready.
Yeah,
we knocked it
was
out
fun.
the park, though. Yeah,
that was really fun. That was a fun little show. You did a couple episodes, I did a couple episodes, and we had a good time with that. The brainchild of Bob McKee. But hey, let's talk Air Force One. You've been out of it for we've been home for about a week now, 5 or 6 days. We talked there what a special event it was. This was a 20th anniversary event. We're going to show some B-roll of you and I doing push-ups because we do have the B-roll. We did 20 push-ups for the anniversary celebration. But talk to me about your experience with Air Force One over the years, and your role has shifted clearly because you're not out there polishing planes and putting waterless wash on and that kind of thing. But I'm interested to know kind of how that transition has happened over the years.
I started off just like anybody else. My first year, like I mentioned in 2014, I was grinding away on aluminum. And that is a whole different animal in itself, especially aluminum that's decades old. I mean, decades old. So that's something that, I think it's over 50 years easily, right? So being able to
back in that day, so if you see videos and stuff now, everything's undercover. I mean, they're still exposed somewhat to the elements, but these planes were just sitting out on the grass, basically, with a little bit of parking area at that point. So they were just getting beaten by the higher altitude, by the higher sun and all that stuff.
Yeah, and this has the original finish on it, and that's the whole purpose of preservation. Unlike some that get retired, they do get refinished for presentation and museum purposes. Is this one? It did not, and it has a very large history of a lot of presidents, from Eisenhower to the Clinton administration, one of JFK's. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there on that specific plane, and we get to touch it and help preserve it. But I started off just like everybody else, all the way up to about 2017. I was able to be a team leader. Team leader was overseeing like a paint team or a finish team with the aluminum. And then from that 18 and 19, I ended up being right under Doug, who's the complete project manager, and overseeing my own few teams. And it was nice because of that background of working in the grit of it all. It gave me the experience to work up to being able to oversee and know what the expectations were.
Yeah.
And those expectations always became refined year after year as we did more of it and had a better structure of team and team management. So it got better and better, even all the way up to this last year, like you've seen. It was just smooth sailing as to where anybody else who would try to come in there and do what we did, it would be, it would be chaos.
Yeah. And their team is it's like not quite half. It's probably 60% of the size of the teams over the last, basically those years pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Because there was only like 35 people this year. And at one time it was 65 or 70. So they've gotten more efficient and better at doing it
and
as they
those
go along.
Previous teams get a lot of credit because they're the ones that laid the foundation to make it easier for the teams coming in. So we don't need as much manpower.
Yeah, you don't need 18 polishers on each plane, right? Just going constantly.
Yeah,
Sure.
so that does make it a little bit more effective and efficient. But
yeah,
and then of course, with the Buff and Shine roll, we ended up landing being the preferred pad of Air Force One, the main pad for Air Force One. So we use our pads out there. We've been doing that since about 2017. And, taking that we had the pandemic situation, that's where it landed me being able to go out there solely to represent as a sponsor.
Yeah.
So still a team member, going into 9 years of being part of the team, but now being able to go out and support my fellow network and mafia members. I say network and mafia because there's a few that are just, Detail and Success network members that aren't mafia. So it's not a full-blown mafia project, although that's one of the brands and logos we capitalize on, obviously, because that's who we are and the strong values we represent. They all do. But yeah, it's been good, and it's been fun to be able to be part of it and watch the preservation and the support and all the support within our industry from so many different volunteers that are sponsors that come out and get their hands dirty. Rod and Jody from Road FS, I mean, they've been out plenty of times where they were covered in aluminum because they've helped out on the project. And, you with Detailer's Helper from that 2014 timeframe, being one of the largest supporters, and that carried over when I was doing Mothers. I wore that belt religiously because
I still have those pictures on my computer from that first event. I can't remember. You were doing there was a Bugatti, or I can't remember what vehicle I think it was like a maroon Bugatti. Well,
even McCall's, when we do that, the PNS team, we're all wearing that. I think that is can't be duplicated. That thing is just that much helpful. So it's cool to have those tools that carry over from one project to another. And you could tell that the purpose of what you did, you solved the problem, right?
Yeah.
And so many people supporting that because it is helpful.
Yeah. And it's been fun too. This year I got a chance to be, Detailer's Helper for half a Wednesday. I switched and did lunch and gave all the, commemorative bags, and then changed my shirt. This is what I do at SEMA too. I have my backpack. I've got like 4 brand shirts, and you just put them all. You put all the brands all over your shirt, so that's probably a more effective way to do it. I should think about that.
I have to show. I've done that. I had my shirt. I get one year. I went behind in the Flex booth where they had the little door, and it was like Superman. It was like go in there and come back out a different brand.
Yeah, but it was fun to be there with Detailers Roadmap and kind of be there with Chris for the first year that they've sponsored, and they were a big sponsor. We were a big sponsor this year, and be able to experience and kind of introduce him to some of the team members and kind of really get a feel for what that looks like. Because as a website company, we're doing websites and SEO, and you're like, well, how does that even relate, right? Like, somebody, but a bunch of the team members like yourself have websites from Detailers Roadmap. So we're a business solution, and these are business owners. That's one thing I talked to Chris about while we were there. I'm like, when you talk to these people, you realize that these really do exemplify the difference between what we always talk about. I know you talk about that difference between a detailer and a business owner in the detailing space. And that's who we serve as a company. And Air Force One is a perfect combination and a perfect venue for that, for sure. So I want to talk to you about Detailers Roadmap. You have just recently launched a redo of your website. Talk me through kind of what led you to reach out to Detailers Roadmap to do the site. And I also want to kind of get a feel for what your expectations were and whether or not those expectations have been met and exceeded, hopefully.
So my previous website, I got into the website aspect of things back in 2011, back when the yellow pages bundled you in the phone book and did a little landing page with 5 pages. So I was early adapter to getting in on the website of things. And I was like, hell yeah, I need a website. I felt that it was as a business, and I was looking always for the cutting edge. And websites, obviously in 2011, it's like that you have to have them.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously now it's a must, but then it was some people were still on the fence, oh, word of mouth works for me. And it's no.
Dude, people still say that. It's 2023.
Yeah, well, their bank accounts usually reflect on that too.
Right.
So, and there's nothing against that. Everybody's happy with where they're at in the different stages of business, and some people just want to be where they're at, and that's to each his own.
Yes.
With that, I got in, and then I have my business partners now with another business, the bar and restaurant, the Phillips Street Filling Station out here in Cocoa Beach. The husband and wife have helped me out tremendously in a lot of my marketing. Helped me find my logo, helped me find my font, get that really defined, all types of things, my trifolds, all of that stuff. And they had built websites for a lot of the local beachside businesses, restaurants, and hotels. So she was on her A game. She knew her shit. And by the time 2015 came around, I was ready to jump on it, but it was a little pricey. I was used to the basic, landing page, couple things, couple $100. Like this was a couple $1,000 to build one.
Yep.
I finally pulled the trigger, and they did me right. I mean, that website killed it. I was dominating digitally online. I still am, but dominating digitally online. When you talk market share, when you pulled up anything, I was the go-to to find it. She had it all dialed in. And over time, it did well. And then, of course, we start the transition from that 2019 timeframe going into the pandemic, and then also with the new business, the restaurant becoming a major focus for the two of them. They dissolved their marketing company, and that was no longer a full-time focus. She kept a handful, like myself, of clients to maintain, which was super cool and super appreciative. But then I also grew and went from detailing to the auto salon. So she did what she could to add those additional services to my website, but it was still a detailing website, and you had to kind of go through to find those services if you were looking for them.
Right.
And I just accepted it because I just needed the transition. It was inexpensive. But then I also this year, got the website went down for like 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
Wow.
Now, mind you, over the last couple of years, I've been watching Chris, with his O'Burke project with him and David Patterson, and then going into him telling me about how he builds websites and that, he had Detailer's Roadmap, but it wasn't at the capacity it is right now. So I watched that, and I've always was hopeful to have somebody in the industry, because we never had really anybody in the industry doing this for us.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know that if somebody understands our industry and they're just a genius at this, they'll kill it. And here comes Chris and Detailer's Roadmap. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, I want to pull the trigger, but I'm also loyal.
Right.
I'm not just going to cut somebody just because it's the next best thing. Like, if I give you my word, I'm going to stick with you. That's just how I've always lived that way. And that's how I grew up. I don't know if it's a street mentality, but I'll take it. Right.
Right.
But so until that happened, I was like, you know what? When my website went down, it was a sign for me. Like, let me take this opportunity. And I called them up immediately. And of course, you had already been on board or just getting on board, somewhere in that timeline, right?
Yeah. It was early after I started. He was like, hey, you want to be on this call with Justin? I'm like, absolutely.
So he presented what they have to offer, and all the, bullet points of what Detailer's Roadmap can do for me. And at that point, I was just like, take my money. And
right.
I couldn't, the value behind it, there are some great people out there, but you really got to search for them. And it sucks because you'll waste a lot of money finding the right guy, when you're doing your own research and your own homework, finding a website developer. And there are some great websites out there that Chris didn't build. But if you don't have one, I'm telling you right now, if you didn't let Chris build your website, you're freaking leaving money on the table, especially with the growth of this industry, not just being detailing anymore, but there's so many other revenue streams that encompass into the same automotive type shop, adding tint, adding film, adding detailing to those, vice versa. The team has it locked in on the lingo, the search words, the layouts, it's all there. And when he did that, and my website was built, and obviously I critiqued mine because I learned how to. Yep. And I understood some of the language, but what I didn't understand, they explained it to me so easily, like trying to explain to a new client what a coding is. There's over the top explanation, and then there's dumbing it down to where they're just like, I get it. And that's how they treated me. I mean, they really just were able to deliver it in a way that I understood everything when I didn't. And it allowed me to kind of tailor the site to exactly who I am. Even though you have your different designs you could pick from, the fact that they take their time and they're so patient with you, no matter how many changes you make, they're still making those changes with a smile. You never see any type of resistance or any kind of like frustration. It's always just, yeah, no problem. Yep. And it was like so smooth like that. And working with a team like that is almost like, you almost have to be like, is this real? Like, are you guys AI maybe, or is this a real human I'm dealing with? Because
I'll tell Jenny that she's AI, right?
Not that there's no emotion, but there's no frustration.
Yeah.
So, some people you work with, they get frustrated because they think what they're doing is right for you. Now, there are some things that Chris put me in check on, like how I would market certain things. He's like, oh, maybe you should try it this way as a suggestion. And I did. And most of, if not all of his suggestions were dead on. So it was me listening more than speaking in some cases, because he knew better. That was his world.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing is it's not just opinion, right? Like he has data from hundreds of sites to say, we know this works better than this. And by works, I've got this shirt that says got conversions, which Chris is not a huge fan of, but it's like, we're interested in converting web visitors to booked clients, and those things that he's tweaked and learned and looked at the data about, it really just makes a huge difference and be able to make great recommendations.
It does. And with that, I've been getting, since June 2nd was the launch date of my website, and we get contact forms coming through daily.
Nice.
And it's amazing. And I have one or two other detailer roadmap customers in my market, and I also have tons of detailers that have had other web developers build websites for them. I'm not sure if they're running SEO, but with the competitive market that there is, there's still a lot of room there to capture. And the fact that they're able to navigate through that, even with maybe one or two extra of their own clients in the same market, is amazing. And how they've been able to establish that, because everybody's getting fed, right? There's nobody's getting more love than the next person. It's equal opportunity, and it's just basically what that customer sees that you have to offer that makes the difference.
Yeah, because everybody's shop is a little bit different. Everybody's shop, has a little bit of a different feel to it, whether it's the owner operator, smaller operations, big operations. And for us, what I'm, one of my roles is to kind of get in there and say, well, based on my experience, because I worked the accredited network for G-Technic. So we kind of dealt with a lot of that through that, and to be able to kind of how we tweak that and how we maximize the partner's effectiveness, but don't, hurt our own effectiveness as well. So that's something that we work pretty hard at that to make sure that whole scenario works well.
And I got to say, and some may not agree, but I have to put it out there that when it does come to the money side of it, smart money makes money, right?
Yeah.
And if you have the capital to throw at doing a bigger, better site, bigger, better SEO, then do it. Because that's, at the end of the day, it's all about, making money, and it takes money to make money. And if you want to trump what you consider competition, or you just want to wash them out, use your money to do it. That's how the rich people do it. That's how the big corporations do it. When they really want to go in for the kill and say checkmate, they just whip out their wallet, and that takes care of everything. But you got to do it in a smart way.
Yeah. And it's ROI. Like everything I do in life and in business is based on return on investment. So it's, I'll use the example. If you went to Vegas and every time you put a buck in, you got $2 back, how long would you stay at that, at that game, right? Like I'd be there, give me $1 million. I'll turn it into 2 million,
But also that money came from what you did to get to where you're at, right? So it's not like you got that as a handout and you got, a leg up on the competition that way. It's like all the hard work, that's where that money came from. So why not make it work harder for you?
Yep. Maximize the effectiveness of the dollars. Well, man, I appreciate you taking the time to do this, especially doing it a second time. Although, if you want, you can get up on your desk and do push-ups, but I think we can run the B-roll for the 20th anniversary. So I appreciate you, Justin. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, Evan, as always, thank you for having me on, and hopefully it was helpful on round 2.
Absolutely. Thanks, buddy.
Head over to detailersroadmap.com and get your one-stop success solution today.